Well, I have spent some time here. I drew up a fretboard on this piece of cardboard. At this angle, I can get the entire fretboard in my laser cutter. Now, what is that angle? Well, I just drew corner to corner on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and it comes out to 37.5 degrees according to, just rough calculations, to be honest. I haven't really calculated it, but that's as close as I think it is right now, about 37.5 degrees. So I'll be able to put this in Inkscape, I think, rotate it approximately 37.5 degrees, and hopefully fit the whole thing in my laser cutter. Now, I have already cut out a tiny rose. Let me see if you can see that. And I cut that out on the laser cutter, and it's a piece of Osage orange, which matches the rest of it. And what my first thought was just make position dots like that. Third, fifth, whatever they work out to. I forget now all the numbers, but anyway, put in dots like that and just make them roses. That would be pretty dang nice, don't get me wrong, it would look just fine. So what I'm thinking about doing is doing that, but then somehow connecting them all with some sort of a vine. The question is, can I do that? Can I draw a decent looking vine that would connect these all up and make it look real nice? So that's where I'm headed. I'm going to try that. Probably can't see this very well because I'm drawing it in light pencil. These first 4 are 9 millimeters tall, that is, and then these are 7.5 millimeters tall, and then this one is 6.5 millimeters tall. And now it's just connecting them with a vine is kind of what I've got to do. I want it to look ornate, and I just don't know how to go about that, really. I think I'm just going to start with just a single line, and I want to kind of come symmetrical to some degree, but it can't be totally symmetrical. See, then I'll have to make it a thick line. It can't be just a thin line like this. I'll have to make it a line that can be scanned into the laser cutter. Something like that, and then maybe come around on this side of this one. Maybe come out of this one this way, come up like this. Maybe make this one a little bit weirder or different and bring it around under this way. Maybe like that. I don't know. That's a little bit too much, maybe. Yeah, I got to look at that and decide if I like that. This is a little weird here. I like it up to about here for sure, up to this point. I'm not so sure I like this. This one here, I've got it coming the wrong way, which all the other ones are growing, which I think makes more sense. Yeah, I just think it looks better when they're growing rather than coming back the other way. I think what I'll do, bring this one around a little bit more steep and then come back into this like so, and then I can grow off of this one up to here and curl back around like so. Something like that. That looks a little better, I think. It doesn't look quite so busy. With these on here, and of course I don't have enough, but you can kind of, you picture your actual wooden vine growing up through there, which I may color green. Then you've got all these different flowers on it, and then I'll have to make some leaves too. And I'm not exactly sure about the leaves, what I want to do, if I just want to put them under the flowers or maybe have a couple along the vine. Yeah, I gotta think about it. Well, that's step 1, just a rough drawing. It's not good enough to scan yet or anything. That's just kind of a rough idea, and I think I'm okay with that one. kind of got a picture of that vine being green and the flowers being yellow, the leaves being green. Or maybe make the vine white and the leaves green. I don't know. Might do that even. You know, leave the vine white and make the leaves green and the flowers are natural yellow. It's a decision, and you just, you know, there's no right or really wrong answer. You just kind of have to do something that suits you, you know. I think I'm going to just take this design now and refine it and make it pretty and dark and clean so that I can scan it. I'll show you what that looks like just as I get ready to scan it. It's the next morning and I've taken the rubber band off of this, and you can see that it's glued in there fairly well. If you get critical, there's, you know, it cracked in several places, and I knew it did, but, you know, what are you going to do? This stuff is hard, and it doesn't want to bend. So it's cracked here, it's cracked like in here, and what I'm going to try to do is force those back into place with clamps and CA glue and stuff, and I think they're going to be okay. But the truth is, I just don't know. There is a chance that I'll be tearing all of this back out of here because, you know, I want it to be as good as possible. And I don't know. We'll just have to see. It's really hard to know how good we can improve this here. So I'm going to put a little CA glue in behind this where it's, and then right on the actual crack, and it's penetrating in there. And then I'm going to take this piece of plastic and this clamp, you know, I'm gonna try like crazy to get this clamp in here and get it to squeeze back. It looks like it worked. You know, I've squeezed it back in there and it looks like it, I mean, like right now by eye it looks perfect. So I'm gonna let that set for a little bit. Might use the accelerator on it and just cleaning up a little bit of where the CA glue ran a little bit there. And now I'll spritz it with the accelerator, and then I'm going to let it set another 5 minutes or so. Just a little light spritz like that. And we'll let it set and see what it looks like, and then we'll move on to the next place. And there's 2 or 3 places that need that treatment. I just noticed something that I hadn't noticed until just now, and that is that the rubber band kind of stuck to some of that finish, which is shellac. And this just kind of gives you, you know, an example of how shellac is such a delicate finish. You can see, I don't know if you can see it or see the dull spaces in here where the shellac, you know, and like the lines through here and then a little bit here. But anyway, shellac, you know, that's the base of French polish, and it just is not a durable finish. You know, that's the main reason I don't like shellac. It just, anything causes a problem with it. And you might say, well, it's not cured yet. Well, this has been sitting for probably 4 days at least before I put this on there. And shellac dries almost instantly. You know, like 5 minutes after you put shellac on, it's pretty much dry. So after 4 days, it shouldn't have created any problem, you know. But it did. So I'll have to kind of smooth that back out. Hopefully it won't discolor everything, because you got to remember the dye is embedded in that shellac too, so it's kind of complicated. You know, I wish that wouldn't have happened, but what else is going to happen on this? It seems like everything does. Well, I took the clamp off, then that seems to be completely successful. So what I thought I'd do is trim this down just a little bit more before I clamp any more of those spots, because, you know, the less wood you have, the easier it is to clamp it. I mean, because it's less rigid, you know, it's a little less spring back, or whatever you want to call it. It just makes the binding a little bit softer and easier to bend. So it just makes sense to trim it down as much as I can trim it down before I try to clean up the rest of it. But that one did go real well. I'm real happy with it. I just hope the rest of them go that well. If they do, then I'm pretty much home free. What I'm trying to do now is cut this in such a way that I don't cut what I've already stained. And that's a little tricky. But with this little 8mm plane, I'm able to get in here pretty tightly, and so far I don't think I've created any big issue. You'll always scratch it a little bit here, a little bit there, and you'll just have to go back and fine brush and touch it up, you know. It's just kind of the way it is, the nature of the beast. But you try to avoid that any more than you have to. Well, that was the worst break, and it looks pretty darn good now. As a matter of fact, I don't even really see it, so I think we're good there now. This one here is the next worst break, and it's fairly significant. You can see it there. Pretty sure you can see it fairly clearly. There's a before. So hopefully we can do some kind of a miracle on this and make the after look like it's going to be fine. Now in this case, that clamp's not going to fit down in there, so I'm going to look around for something that's going to work better. Well, actually, that rubber just came off. It might fit in there better now. It's still going to be a little tight. I'm going to try something else. Well, because this crack is on this inside edge here, and I can use wedges in there, I think. I think that's the best way. I got a different piece of plastic. This one's a little thinner than this one. This one doesn't flex as much. This one's a little more flexible, which I think is good for this tight curve. And so basically we just do the same thing again. I'll put the CA glue on here and try to make sure, oh, it just runs everywhere. Just so sad that it just can't cooperate. Anytime you want just a tiny bit, it'll just go everywhere. Other times, when you want it to come out, it won't come out to save your neck. It's just nuts. All right, well, anyway, I've got the wedge here, and it's wedging down in there, and when I did it dry, it worked perfectly. Now it's not quite doing the same thing. It's not terrible, it's just not great. I just need something a little better. May have to put in another real thin wedge right in between there. I think that's going to work. That's going to work. And so really what I'm doing there is pushing it in like that, and I think that's going to work just fine. In fact, I think that's working real good. And it looks like we have another crack over here. This one looks a little more ugly, but I think it'll be okay. On this side over here, it looks like there might be a little bit of a chip out even, which is unfortunate. You know, if I have to, I may cut a tiny sliver of wood and put it in there. Who knows what I'll do. But I think we can cover it up, and I don't think it's going to be noticeable. When you're working with this kind of material, you just kind of got to roll with whatever Mother Nature gives you, because this is not simple. So there's an after on that spot right here. It turned out really good. You can't really see it again. I'm pretty happy with it. Once I clean up, sand that front edge there, I don't think you'll see it at all. Same way with this one here now. The difference is, as I mentioned, this one looks like it has a tiny, tiny chip out. I think I'm just going to try to glue it in place like it is first, and then deal with the chip out if we have to. There's space here. It's separated. Hopefully, maybe when I squeeze it back together, that chip out will squeeze back together, I'm hoping. I'm trying to figure out the best way to clamp this one, which it looks like this may work for this one too. It probably will. I think this one I can go ahead and get the glue on it like it is right here. Spritzing the accelerator on the shellac is not that good either. It softens the shellac and makes it really tacky, and so it just kind of, yeah, it's just constant issues, just constant issues. In hindsight, I probably would have been better after I did the shellac to go ahead and put a first coat of the oil varnish, very light first coat of that, to seal the shellac, because the shellac is just a nightmare in my opinion. Okay, well, that's probably good, but I better just spritz it very lightly if I can. think it's okay. We'll just, uh-oh. Yeah, CA glue, man, it runs everywhere. It ran down and got in there somehow. How in the heck did it do that? It just, it's amazing how it'll just go anywhere and everywhere. I don't think I've ever seen any material that finds its way into more places than CA glue. Which is good when you want it to do that, but when you don't want it to, it'll do it also. Yeah, I think by the time I sand that, I don't think that's going to show up. I think it's going to look okay. The only negative I have is that I had to make this binding extra thin in order for it to bend at all. And so I don't have a lot of fudge factor there. You know, I can't sand much of it off. It's because it would get too thin. So I have to make it work as well as I can make it work. We got a spot right there. I got several more of those spots. I'm not going to film any more of them, but I've got several more to clean up and fix. If I run across anything that I think you'd be interested in, I'll show you. Well, I've got her cleaned up pretty well. I think I'm going to be okay with this. It's made a few little scars in this edging here because you got to clean it up, but I've touched those up too, and I think it's going to be fine eventually. I'm more concerned, honestly, about wrapping the rubber band around here and how it's messing up this finish. I don't know. I may have to back up and punt. I may try to clean the finish up as good as I can again, and then go ahead and spray a very light oil varnish over it. You know, I'm really not ready for the oil varnish yet, but I may have to just to seal this darn shellac. The shellac is just a pain. It really is. You just look at it wrong and it messes it up. Look at the scarring there. That's just rubber bands. That's just from the rubber band. It's really bad. Yeah, I don't know. So while I'm thinking about that, I think what I'm going to do is take a break on that, and I'm going to put on these point protectors. You got to have point protectors on these. You don't have to. These almost meet up well enough that I don't need point protectors, but I think that'll help tie the binding together, because I'm gonna put them in curly maple, just like the binding. So these will go across here, and then it'll kind of look like the binding's tied into those. At least that's my goal. So let's see how that goes. All right, for these body protectors, I'm just gonna do it kind of by eye, like I do most things. I'm just going to get it squared up to the side here. Just draw an arbitrary line where I think I want to start. And of course I'm trying to start a little conservative. In other words, I could probably cut more here. I'm just starting off easy, light, or whatever. Trying to draw the line across here. It's not showing up very well. And when I look at it now, away from there, I don't know, I'm not getting a real square feeling out of that. Make sure that it's the same distance. It's just about 1 inch, just a hair above it. This side seems to be a little bit more than that. Yeah, that looks better, I think. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Dremel tool now with a cutter, and I'm just going to start cutting this down until I get to that line. Once I get down to the line, I may take a file or something and work it out that way. I'll show you how I do that. Okay, I'm going to use this kind of a Dremel cutter. Now, I'll be honest, this can go south very quickly. No offense to the people that live in the South. This is, yeah, you might want to reconsider doing it this way. I have done it this way a lot, and it works for me, but your results could differ widely. And of course, having said that, my results could differ widely this time. You just never know. But I feel like I know how to do this and how to anchor it and get it solid and all that. And boy, that's the key to it. You got to be solid when you do something like this.
From where I stand, I can see all the lights of the city.
I think I'm doing fine, but I want to show you what can happen. You can see here, I don't think this is going to hurt me at all because I think I'm still a long ways from where I want to be. But you can see how the tool grabbed and it cut down in here. And that doesn't look that bad now, but at the time it happened, I was much higher and it looked like it might have went pretty far. But in this case, I don't think it's going to hurt me at all. I think I'm going to be just fine. But you know, I'm just trying to point out to you the problems with using a tool like I just did. You got to be very careful about how it grabs and pulls and jumps and things. So, you know, I let it get away from me there, and I just thought I should show that to you so you could see how it can get away from you. Fortunately, I don't think it hurt anything in this case. I am still not down to my line that I marked, but I think I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to go to the files now and try it that way. And I may go back to something else, but right now I'm going to try the files. I've got a double cut, small double cut file here.
For one man to love one woman so much it's a pity. From where I stand I can see the cantina she goes to. Where she
I think what my goal is here is when I end up with this little point protector, and I don't really have a way to measure that, is that it works out to be about the same thickness as the binding. What I might do is stop right there, go ahead and put the binding on, see where the point comes to, and then I'll know if I need to go down more or just leave it where it's at or that kind of thing. So I may just stop there, get the binding on here, and then the binding will be on both sides, and then I'll just fill in between there. Yeah, it might be awkward. I know other people do it the other way. They'll put this piece on first, but I'm just trying to make it all work out, you know. And I don't know how it's going to work out till it works out. That's why I think I would prefer to put these bindings on first, let them come up to their point wherever they work out to, and then fill in between them. I think that's what I'm going to do. But I am going to go ahead and cut this one off too and get it started, kind of like this one started. That'll save a little bit of trouble later. I'm going to do this one off camera, but you see what I did. Well, I keep kind of putting this off. This is one of these things I'm a little bit procrastinating on because it's just so complicated. It really is. You know, I've got my basic design, and that's kind of what I want. But now I have to make it pretty exact in order to scan it in and, you know, have the laser cutter cut it and all that kind of thing. And I'm really not exactly sure how I'm going to do that. I was going to use the thicker lead, but I think I'm going to have to do it with the finer lead in order to get the really fine line. And if you know anything about this lead, it likes to break, boy. And you got to put a little bit of pressure on it in order for it to do anything, to make it dark enough.
He's not supposed to, but goes anyway. From where I stand I can hear the music and laughter. Carmilla tells me that's what her young heart is after.
Really all I want is the vine itself and the leaves. I don't want the flowers or the other lines around this in order for the scanning to work well. So I've got to erase all the rest of this stuff.
I see you differently, I see you there with a man. Carmilla is lying, I see it from where I stand.
Well, you can kind of see what I'm doing there. I'm just drawing it in, trying to get it as smooth and straight as I can get it. And, you know, doing that by hand, that's more easy said than done, I can tell you that. It just kind of is what it is again. You just have to stick with it till you get it done. And then my hope is I can scan it into the computer. That's my hope. So I'll show you what it looks like when I get her finished. Well, that's what I ended up with. Whether it's good enough or not, I don't know. It's really a challenge now to get this into the computer and clean it up in the computer where it'll work. You know, like, you know, you can easily scan this in, but there's so many problems with it. I mean, like, it's not clean, it's not straight, it's not, I don't know, it's jagged, it'll be pixelated, have all kinds of issues when you first get it into the computer. So then you've got to get it all cleaned up and get it really sweet looking. If I wasn't such a idiot, I probably should have just found some art that was already made up and used it. But you know me, I have to do it the hard way. I'm just hoping this will work out where I'll be satisfied. Because right now, I can't tell. But I'll show you the next step when I get to it. You probably can't see this real clearly, but I'm tracing my hand-drawn vine on the computer. And I have to trace it like every few, I don't know, just millimeters, every millimeter or two I have to click. So I am using what they call a Bezier curve or whatever that is. I don't even know if that's the right name. But anyway, I'm just following this around in order to convert this art into a graphic that the laser cutter can understand. I tried to do it more automatically, and the results are sort of okay, but they're not that great. This will give me guaranteed results, I'm pretty sure, even though it's just a pain to drag this little cursor around. You probably can't even see it. And I'm clicking every couple of, just every little distance, and you have to trace every single, you know, thing and every leaf and everything. So that's what I'm doing. I just thought I'd show it to you. Hopefully you can see that I have been able to cut this out. Now, I cut that out of a piece of maple, this piece of maple specifically. And it seems to line up just right. In other words, that should be the 12th fret there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th fret right there. So there will be 2 flowers there. A flower here, a flower here, a flower here, and a flower here. And those would represent where the dots would be. And of course a flower back here at the 15th fret also. I'm presently having the laser cutter do the raster side of this, meaning that it would cut the cavity out in this black. I'll show you that on the screen over here. I think you can see on the screen that this is how the machine now will cut out all that black on the fretboard. It's now going to cut that cavity into this black fretboard where I can lay this white vine in there. And then I'll have the yellow roses cut out separately and lay them in there. So maybe you can tell it's quite a process. You know, and maybe I'm not doing that part by hand, so maybe that part is not built by a human, but a human still had to figure out how to do it. So, you know, it's not like it's just put in some big computer somewhere and you push a button and they just pump out 1,000 of them. It's not like that, at least. You know, is it really built by a human if I'm doing it this way? Kinda, sorta. Somewhere in between. As you can see, I have the machine cutting the raster area, or the what you would call the cavity area on the fingerboard. You know, I get one shot at this. If it doesn't work, I have to make a new fingerboard. I'm not sure how well it shows up, but it's not engraved very deeply. It's pretty shallow. You can see it very clearly, but it's very shallow. So I'm going to have it cut that again, and hopefully it'll get a little deeper. You know, I cut it twice, but even though it didn't cut it much deeper the second time, so what I'm doing is I'm coming through here with this little tiny dental tool, and I'm scraping out the charcoal at least. It's not getting a lot deeper, but every little bit helps at this point. And I would say that we're only in the neighborhood of about 20 thousandths deep here. I guess there's not much point in guessing. I can check it with my calipers, but but I feel like that's got to be in the ballpark. I don't think it's much different than that. Might be a little deeper. Yeah, we're 25 thousandths, so that's not real deep, but it's deep enough, I think. And I say think because I'm not 100% sure. I think it'll do though. Anyway, I'm just trying to get into all the little nooks and crannies and get as much of the wood out of there as possible. That way it'll go in a little, as deep as I can get it in there. And that's going to take quite a while, so I'm not going to show all of that, but you can see what I'm doing. Well, I have spent a lot of time cleaning that out. I'm hoping I can lay this in there now and it'll go down in there deep enough. I don't expect it to go all the way flush, but if it just kind of gets down in there fairly deep, I'll be happy. And it's a little tricky getting it in there. I think it's actually in there. It's still quite proud of what I would prefer. What do I say? It is kind of what it is. I'm going to go ahead and get the vine glued in there. I'm going to use the CA glue and kind of press it in place and just work my way back up here to the other end. The first one, it's really proud of the surface, but I think it's going to be fine. It's just not exactly what I was hoping for, but it's what I got. Now I have to figure out about the roses and see if they're going to fit. I know they will, but don't know how well they'll fit. So first thing I'm going to do is clean out the little area there where the super glue squeezed out. I really need a little bit harder surface at this point. Maybe I could just do that and make it good enough. I think it will be. So that'll give you some idea what that's going to look like. It's pretty darn nice, if you ask me. It's going to take a lot more work, but we'll get there. I'll show you what it looks like when I get the rest of them glued in. Well, with the exception of the one leaf that's missing, which I'll have to recut, it worked out pretty well, even though it's not very deep. So what I'm going to do now, well, actually I'm going to go ahead and cut that leaf, get it in there, and then I'm going to run this through the thickness planer and just sand off the top of these flowers and this vine until it gets down to the fingerboard. At least that's going to be my attempt. We'll see how well that goes. Well, I got that close. It's frustrating. It really is. If you look at the first 3 roses up there, they look just fine. Then you get to these small roses, and for whatever reason, the etching didn't go as deep, and when I sanded these off, or they didn't get as deep in the inlay, one of the two, it sanded off most of the detail of these little roses, which is really sad because it's nice when all the detail is there. You don't, not many people are up close enough to see it, but when you are up close enough to see it, it's nice to see it. And now it's gone. So that's frustrating. So I guess I'm going to take my little Dremel router, route out these yellow ones here, recut these, put them back in. Yeah, there you go. Ain't that special? So here I am routing this back out. I've got the plunge set to the proper depth, I think. Here we go. Might as well use the light since he built one into it. That'll help a lot. I just got to do that 3 more times. I'm not going to film any more of that. I'll show you what it looks like when I get to the next step. Well, I think I got her fixed up there. Finally. Man, that was a lot of work. Like I said, I haven't made up my mind whether I want to make the little tiny leaves green or just leave it like it is. And of course it could still use a little bit of fill in a few places. I'm actually surprised it needs much fill. It needs more than what I would have expected with it being cut on the laser cutter, but hey, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Well, there's a look at it after getting it all cleaned up, you know, filled in pretty much. Now I need to put the frets in this baby. But it looks pretty good to me. I'm pretty happy with that. It's kind of an optical illusion. These dots don't look like they're in a row, but they really are on the center line, all the way up through there. When you look at it down the end like this, you can definitely tell it when you look at it straight down the end. And then these two, of course, are offset because they're at the 12th fret. There's 2 of them. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and start putting the frets in this baby. Well, this is the true test. What does it look like on the mandolin? So there you go. It's starting to look pretty cool. Of course, it's still a long way from being finished, but you can start to get the flavor of it now. Kind of pretty.